Do a flip. Watch out. This is NFL. Malik Neighbours, he did a flip pass. This is NFL Straya, and I am your co-host, Jaymz Clements. I'm a guy who is being run ragged by the NBA trade deadline right now. I'll tell you that much. Chaos. I had to do a drunken reaction show last night to the Luka AD trade. Anyway, I'm here hanging out in Larry Armour Studios because it's a Monday. We don't usually do Monday shows, but I don't know. We've got a Supie this week. So on the other side of this here screen, it is a bloke who's already got the Eagles tattoo. The next one goes along-ish long. It probably is a picture of Jalen Hurts. I'm just saying. He is still trying to figure out a way to get to New Orleans as we speak. It is a sometimes singer in a band called The Ramshackle Army. He is the face, the voice of Fly Eagles Fly in Australia.
I wouldn't go that far.
He's my mate. He's your mate. It's Gaz. Gaz, your Eagles are a week away from Super Bowl triumph, no doubt. How are you feeling?
I'm really tired. Well, it's 40 fucking degrees, and there was a thunderstorm last night, so I had a dog in bed that was just shaking, freaking the fuck out. But apart from that, I reckon I've listened to every fucking podcast and every football podcast to have this game analysed 6 ways till Sunday, and we're still a week out, Jim. I don't know if I can hear any more storylines, and we're about to give some to you. So there you go.
Well, that's good. Like what we kind of do with our Supie preview shows is very similar to what we do with the preview show that we do at our live show for the Super Bowl, right? We'd sort of just hit on the things that we want to talk about that we think will probably decide the game.
Yeah.
Do some picks, and that's kind of it. Like, we're not journos, obviously.
No.
Kind of. Well, I guess, whatever.
Yeah.
Technically, yes, but anyway.
Technically, one of us actually is, Jim. That's literally what one of us is, and it isn't fucking me.
I'm not exactly out here rap-reporting, you know what I'm saying? Just call me Jim Schefter. But we do, on our Supie preview, we do look at both the teams. We'll talk it out. We've got some Supie questions. There's some real basic ones. But then mostly I think the 5 sort of key things that we're just going to talk out, which is kind of like half the as well. We've got like roughly 10 of our best picks of what we think might happen and that we kind of just like. Those sort of come out, and we'll talk about them again before the game. So you can actually check out some of these during the week and some videos we'll be putting out as well. And basically we'll just come to the end of the show and just have our Supie picks, which is kind of fun because, I don't know, Gaz goes for the Eagles, and I have a big future already riding on the Chiefs. So surprise twist. Guess who we're both going for.
Yes.
Either way, it is a fun, awesome Super Bowl. And like, this is one of the biggest things I'll get into in a second, but I actually really like this matchup. People sort of seem to just be like a bit down on it, which blows my mind. And we've also got some big Aussie news. So we should just bloody well get into it. This is episode 122 of NFL Straya. Let's go! Travis! Do you have to go play this game this week? Okay, I'll hang out with your mum again. Oh, g'day, this is Taylor Swift. You might know me from the Kansas City Chiefs, and you're listening to NFL Straya. All right, Gaz, it is a big week ahead. Like, we've got, everyone rolling into media row and stuff now. Like, the teams are actually getting into New Orleans as we sort of speak, which is pretty crazy. But the biggest news, if you ask me and anybody in Australia when it comes to the NFL, is the fact that we got the news over the weekend. The NFL is coming to town.
According to the Herald Sun.
So, it's one of the, and literally I did the same sort of double take. Because I actually chatted about this on another show a little while ago. Like, do you reckon they'll play regular season games down here? I'm like, no. I think the time frame, prime time over here to sell enough tickets to make it really worth your while. You want it at a half decent time of the day in Australia. And then also the broadcast time back to the States is just probably going to suck. Like, we're on a hiding to nothing for broadcast times in our prime time back to the States.
Yeah.
States prime time back to here is during the day. That's fine. But when it's like our evening, like, it's just chaos.
Yeah.
But it looks like we'll have Rams, Eagles, presumably sometime next year in October for a regular season game. And it appears to be the first of 3. So 3 years worth of games where they have an NFL game in Australia, which is awesome because I talked it out. You want to have it at the G. It's the biggest way you can sort of do it to make it worth their while, to like really showcase, like, I don't know, Australia and Melbourne and the entire sort of vibe. It'd be huge if it actually happens. If it is happening, I'm stoked. I cannot wait. That is unreal. And as an Eagles fan, Gaz, how you feeling?
Yeah, so my phone kind of has been exploding for the last 24 hours. Not only of the Eagles pages, like Philadelphia Eagles fans Australia and all that sort of stuff. All of those guys have been fucking going off their head going, oh my God, guys, it's happening. It's that fucking Office meme with, going off his, Michael Scott going off his head. But there's still a few things that are yet to be ironed out, obviously, when you talk about when we're supposed to play the Rams next season. And the Eagles already gave up a home game this year to play in Brazil. So how does that tie in with the Eagles being asked to give away 2 home games across 3 years? Obviously, how do they fit that into the schedule with recovery times and all that sort of stuff? So they have to have a short week on some end. How's it all going to fit in? How is the fucking ginormous MCG gonna make it that the spectacle is even half decent to watch, with a little 100-yard field in the middle? 100-yard field in the middle. So look, there's all of these questions, but still fucking pretty exciting. I just hope that, we don't all miss out on tickets to Fairweather Fans. It becomes a corporate event that Gaz is already going to be in line for some corporate box somehow, right? I'll sort it out. If only we had a media mogul in the NFL Straya team, Jim, who could sort something out for us. But anyway, no, it's going to be an exciting time. It's obviously, some 18 months away or whatever. But if the college game they played when was that? A couple of years ago now. That sorted out decently quickly, but I think the NFL will go off its fucking head. That'd be great.
It would be amazing if it does happen, and I can't wait. Let's go. The setup, obviously, Rams, Eagles, is the entire thing about NFL Australia sort of setting up the 2 sort of fan bases over here, right? Like they're the 2 teams, territory, and
marketing rights. Yep. But for the article title, and I think it was the Daily Mail, that says that basically Australia is going to be treated to 2 Super Bowl winners. Now, technically, they are correct. The Rams and Eagles have both won a Super Bowl, but it would just as likely be correct if they said Super Bowl winning 49ers and Cowboys, even though that happened in the 90s. Technically, both franchises have won a Super Bowl, but by the time the Rams and Eagles get to playing here, if we don't take this year out of it, I mean, Stafford's unlikely to be playing then. Donald gone. Cooper Kupp expected to be gone. So all those people who were there for the Super Bowl, it's going to be a different Rams team. And for us, it will be going back to that to the 2017-18 season as well. So it's a stretch, but there's going to be fan bases for both teams, and it'll be fucking awesome.
Oh, yeah. Nice one. That's good. Exciting times. We'll just host it.
Of course.
Of
course. Yeah. And also, what the articles were, the Eagles won in 2017-18, and they're in the Super Bowl again this year, where they'll take on Travis Kielce and the Kansas City Chiefs. He's gone to he's the team now. According to populous media, it's Taylor Swift's boyfriend's team, as we know. But this is...
Well, he's the most important player on the team, surely.
Clearly.
All right.
Anyway.
Good stuff. Supie. Let's talk Supie.
Right.
The NFL coming to Australia. Love it. Excited. We have all next year to go.
That's future Gaz's problem.
Super Bowl LIX. Let's go. 59. Eagles, Chiefs, Gaz. You've had a week to sort of percolate this. You got the Chiefs going for the first ever three-peat, which is pretty crazy. The Eagles did obviously spoil another three-peat with, Pat's Super Bowl wins, bracketing the stupid Eagles loss. And the Eagles just seemingly just going for revenge, which is always fun, having lost 2 years ago in heartbreaking fashion, but at the same time, hilarious fashion, as we all get to watch your face crumble live on camera, which we'll be doing again as an FYI. Anyone who's actually listening wants to come down and hang out. We will be doing a live stream of us partying, watching the Super Bowl, commentating along as we always do. But we're also having a party at the Catfish. So if you can't make the Catfish, watch the live stream. If you can make the Catfish, come hang out and sing some beers.
Discount tins of Sierra Nevada, shots of Screwball. Like, fuck, they just started posting the specials from the Supie, and we still haven't seen what Sparrow's Philly cheesesteaks is going to be doing on the day. So it's going to be on for young and old. See if you can fit in 3 this year, Jim.
Well, I was on a what was I on? I was on a diet last year. It was brutal.
Yeah.
I did survive just. Right. So Eagles, Chiefs, you've got 2 awesome teams. And the more that you dig into the numbers, like, I don't know how you've sort of felt over the last week, sort of listening to stuff time and time again. And I know that you're just like brimming with confidence, I think, after this, because the more you sort of think about it, the more you look at it, you're like, I think the Eagles might have a chance. I'm just saying. And the more I've looked at it, I'm like, well, I'm just already stoked. I've already got money on the Chiefs, and that's already money. That's just done. I have to worry about that. That's if the big question is whether or not I hedge on the day. But so let's have a look at these 2 teams, right? Obviously, you got Mahomes and Kielce on one side. You got Hurts, AJ Brown, and Saquon on the other. The defense has been fantastic. I think that's the biggest thing, right? You got these 2 defenses. Kansas City ranked 4th in points per game, 9th in yards allowed, and in the postseason have been wildly effective, if not shut down, right? Like Texans and then Bills, here we are. They were actually 18th in pass defense during the season, 8th in run D. They allowed 24 passing touchdowns, 13 rushing. And it's one of those ones you go, yeah, it just sort of speaks to their ability of the defense to sort of slow everything down and not allow that many actual scores when it got down to it, right? And of course, they would also then block field goals and win games out pass, because that's what the Chiefs do. The defense for the Eagles, 1st in yards allowed. Not bad. 2nd in points per game allowed by 0.2 of a point, I believe, behind, I want to say, the Chargers. 1st in passing defense, allowed only 22 passing touchdowns. 10th in rushing allowed, which is pretty crazy, and especially against this pop gun Chiefs rushing attack, you reckon it feels pretty good. 9 rushing touchdowns allowed all season. So let's start with the defense. Do you feel like you've got the advantage there, even though the Chiefs one is very, very solid and probably the better of their 2, big parts of the team?
Yeah, look, it's difficult, that defensive line for them with CJ is just fucking brutal, right? He'll tear that game. The defensive tackles for both teams are absolutely insane, right? So I feel that the Eagles have a bit of an advantage. What's really difficult is I take it back and look at this Eagles team, and it feels like we're so much better than we were 2 years ago. But then you go back and have a look at the Eagles defense from 2 years ago, and we had, 4 players with more than 10 sacks. Bradbury, who was the GOAT, like the fucking GOAT, and not in a good way, of the game with that passing, penalty, the holding call and that last drive. He was an all-pro that year. He turned to shit the year after, but he was an all-pro that year. But when you look at our defensive lineups, our starters are absolutely night and day. So the where am I? The defense for that, the linebackers were a problem in that year. They were Kazir White, TJ Edwards, and Hassan Reddick, who couldn't drop into coverage, right? And now we've got Pro Bowlers, and an all-pro, right, in the middle there. Oren Burks has come in, stepped in. He's been great. And we may potentially have Brandon Graham back. So there's or at least, even if he plays fuck all, Tom Brady remembers who he is. But it's just the heart and soul of that defense stepping up. defensive backs with the starters were Bradbury and Maddox along with Slay last time. Now we've got the two rookies who are being fucking amazing. The secondary in terms of the safeties were the same, but then we had Jonathan Gannon's bend don't break defense, and now we've got Vic Fangio, right? And who's been shut down. However, Jim, fun fact, Vic Fangio's never beaten Patrick Mahomes.
0-8, Gaz. 0-8.
0-8. 0-8. But I feel like this team, even we were number one in all of those categories, and that was with a shit defense after going into week 5, into the bye.
Love it.
Right? So you look at that, then you flip on the other side. Their defensive line is fucking strong. But they're also taking on the Eagles' offensive line. So that'll be really, really interesting matchup. And then, yeah, of course, there's the offensive sides of the ball to talk about.
Indubitably, KC, 15th in points per game, which is like, oh, wow, that's not very good, is it? No, it's quite middling, in fact. 22.6 points per game, 17th in yards per game, 327.6, 14th in passing, 22nd in rushing. So middling to not great kind of offensive stats for KC. 26 passing touchdowns all season, 15 rushing. And that came with Kareem Hunt filling in for Isaiah Pacheco for a big chunk of it, obviously. Kielce sort of not being Kielce for most of the year because he's older and shit. And them losing Rashee Rice very early on to an ACL. Xavier Worthy being a rookie. So, yeah, you can sort of see why it works. And then, of course, they scored 30 points for the first time all season last week. So, here we go. For Philly, their offense is 8th in yards per game, 7th in points. So, surprisingly, better than KC. So, straight away, your stats are like, hey, the Eagles are better. And you're like, okay, that's good. 4th, lowest passing yards, however, for the Eagles. Not a giant surprise when you've got the second best rushing attack behind a bloke named Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson on the Ravens. So it feels like the offense of the Eagles, I mean, the sheer numbers, like just slightly better than KC. But you can also sort of say, well, the passing attack, if it's on song, it's going to be really hard to beat because the rushing attack is usually on song. So can the twain meet? Is the question. So
that was the one for obviously Mahomes is Mahomes, right? He's done enough. And as we've been saying since, kind of late in the season, Worthy's getting more and more involved, right? Like he can just take a ball and just split a defense in half, right? So that's a concern. Kielce, he turns it on in the playoffs. And also Zach Ertz tore us apart for 110 yards last week, and except for a fucking touchdown, which was the one thing I needed for my multi, right? So look, we're missing Nakobe Dean. That second, like if we step up to stop Kareem Hunt, we are going to be like kind of soft in the middle. We're definitely going to need the exciting whites in Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship to step up and try and take Kielce out of the game. But then when you look on the other side, I don't know, it's weird, like a more polarizing quarterback this year than Jalen Hurts going, oh yeah, he's just being carried by Howie Roseman's roster and all this sort of stuff. And then come to last week and he kind of turns it on a little bit with and as he came out in the press conference and said they let me out of the straitjacket a little bit. He's got it there. He's done just enough that it was needed because it was Saquon taking the fucking first play from scrimmage to the house. Fucking a 5-yard pass to Dallas Goedert and he stiff arms 3 dudes and runs into the end zone. So those things are there. It's what Steve Spagnuolo is going to do. We talked about it just before we started recording. It just feels like the obvious thing is what Washington tried to do, which was take out Saquon and then make Hurts beat you, right? The difference being that the Washington didn't have the horses and the experience that someone like a Chiefs will. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the funny thing is, versus the last Super Bowl, we've got both different coordinators, a shit ton of different people on defense, a different kind of running back who seems to be going all right. Massive changes from that period. And then people often forget that the very next season we played them and actually did beat the Chiefs. But that's not playoff Chiefs, right? Playoff Chiefs just seems to be a different beast.
RC Chiefs, Gaz. RC Chiefs. That's what they are. One other cool thing before we get into the big questions we want to sort of have a look at. So Mahomes, Kielce, Chris Jones, Harrison Butker, and James Winchester, their snapper, would be the third set of 5 teammates to ever play in 5 Super Bowls together, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go.
Absurd. It's a lot of Supies. Obviously, the Pats have got Tom Brady, Patrick Chung, Gostkowski, Devin McCourty, and Matthew Slater. And then the other one was the Cowboys. We had Larry Cole, Cliff Harris, D.D. Lewis, Charlie Waters, and Rayfield Wright. So it doesn't happen very often. It's kind of cool, kind of neat. I enjoyed that one. I'm like, oh, that's fun. That's a fun stat. Outside of that, you mentioned middle of the field coverage. Can I hit on that? It's MOFO. Yeah. One of the great stats, MOFO. Middle of the field open. So the coverage is second highest amount is what the Chiefs play at. So Hurts versus single high, he's got a 7.4 completion rate, 70.4, right? You're like, that's not bad. Against too high, it's 66.5. And so if they're going to go too high, it's like, ooh, maybe Hurts isn't throwing as much. They get a little bit sneakier. But you jog the memory about the MOFO stat. I'm like, oh, I love a good MOFO stat. So
yeah, it's clear. It's been everywhere in the assessment of defenses trying to take on the Eagles since the bye, since they were like, let's be run first. And it's kind of that pick your poison, right? All they're waiting for is for either Smitty or AJ to get single coverage. And that's what happened last week when got to 4th down. And then they were like, oh, we're just going to fucking bomb it in the breadbasket for AJ, and all of a sudden it's a 30-yard pass. But you feel like Spags is going to take those passes away, and it could be a big game for Dallas for that reason, right?
Hell yeah. All right. That's kind of a bit of a setup. You sort of know where their units sort of rank. You've got Philly first in defense, 8th in offense, around that 7-8 if you want to go points per game, etc. KC, pretty awesome defensively. Offensively, a little bit middling. So, I think the biggest one is 5 most important things that we want to look at before we get into some other ENRs, which are a little bit more generic. Isn't it containing Kielce? Like the insane stat about his playoff record up until literally last week, crushing it. The craziest part as well, though, is he doesn't have a single end zone target against Philly ever.
Oh,
which is pretty nuts.
There you go.
He's got 1 end zone target in every Super Bowl except when he played the Eagles. So, I don't know. It's one of those weird ones because I think the Eagles on one side are sort of like, well, how good are we defending tight ends? The Chiefs are like, well, we're actually bloody horrible. So, I don't know. The one thing is can your Eagles contain a tight end, Gaz?
Yeah, look, it's going to come down to rookies, which is kind of scary, right? Cooper's going to have a big ass fucking game, right? It's definitely that case. And then the linebackers, we're not going to be as scared of. I don't think we're scared of the KC rushing attack too much, unless it's passing out of the backfield, right? And then the linebackers have been kind of, pretty good in coverage this year. But once again, Andy Reid's got 100 reportedly 100 different screen passes in his playbook. So something to that effect. So all it needs to be is flaring out a running back that we have to cover or onto a wheel route, and it's leaving a big hole in the middle of that field, as you said, for Kielce to run straight down the seam. So I don't know, Jim. I've thought about this game. I'm still a week out, Jim, and I feel like I've dissected the possibilities of this game, and it's fucking killing me.
I love it. Yeah. I just also love that you basically turned into Tony Romo. I don't know, Jim. Jim, I don't know about this one. Corner battles. That's kind of the thing. It's almost a part and parcel of that as well, right? Yeah. So whose cornerbacks have the better game, I think. Like if KC shut down AJ Brown, Devonta Smith.
We don't have a third.
Exactly right.
There is nothing. There is no slot receiver for the Eagles.
Dotson.
Dotson, and really moving Dallas out. To be honest,
Dotson. I got a Dotson here.
Yeah.
But either way, the sort of setup, it means like you can't let AJ Devonta off the chain. Like you just can't. Like, if you have Hurts passing the ball really effectively, you're probably going to get cooked at some point. And KC's receivers outside of Kielce, it's like you limit maybe Worthy. Are you afraid of DeAndre Hopkins? Are you afraid of Juju? No, probably not. Like the DeAndre Hopkins drop-off has been pretty crazy the last couple of years. So you sort of look at that. He's had a pretty rough postseason as well. So I don't know. Like if your CBs can sort of limit everything else outside of maybe Kielce, you feel like you're okay. But if Worthy sort of snaps one off, you're like, oh, God, we're in for an absolute stoush, which I'll get my best bets. But either way, how do you feel about the corner battles?
Yeah, look, it's Slay has in the second half of the season, it's like a resurgence. And as it's got closer to the playoffs, he's actually been playing out of his fucking skin. And Quignon's been, he's been on an island by himself. Very, very few. I think he's had 2 touchdowns for the season or something, including playoffs, which is fucking hectic. Even shut down last week, Scary Terry. That crazy touchdown that he ran through the defense was not on Quignon. And obviously, even though Cooper DeJean didn't start until after the bye, like he was considered in conversations for Defensive Rookie of the Year. That said, we've started to see Xavier Worthy tear through defenses. We're really relying on that secondary, and CJGJ can get his at safety, can let his emotions get the better of him at times. So need to keep that under control. And then KC's secondary has been kind of keeping them in games so that Mahomes just has to do enough. So it's going to be fucking tough. You don't want to give you don't want to give single coverage to any of these receivers. However, you got to stack the box at some point. If you're taking on Saquon, if you're taking on what Hunt's starting to get some momentum in this game, in this season.
And that's
I don't know. I'm glad I'm not a defensive coordinator in this game, Jim, because these two teams are pretty okay.
Yeah, not anymore. DeAndre Hopkins has run just 13 and 11 routes in his last 2 games. He's caught 1 of 3 targets for 11 yards in the playoffs.
3 targets are fucking hell.
Jeez.
There you go.
That led very nicely, though. The KC run defense, like most of it just sort of is about that, right? Like stop Saquon and Jalen and stop the Eagles. Like, here we go.
Yeah.
They gave up, 88 in 18 carries to Joe Mixon in the first week. And then last week, 85 to James Cook. But obviously the big one was Josh Allen with the 39 in the end on the ground. So, I don't know. It gets a bit tricky. How do you feel about Saquon snapping a few off and going absolutely ham?
So, look, Kellen Moore being in there is a nice little name for us because they knew that, say, last week, right, when we play Washington, and their defensive tackles are pretty good, even though they are a little bit banged up and they were missing someone. They knew that the first thing is need to get to the outside, right? If we can get to the outside and have them concerned about that, well, then we're okay. And that was what happened in the first play, right? That toss off to Saquon, finds a gap, home. I don't really expect it to go that well. But as in interviews during the season, Saquon's like, I'm hoping they stack the box because I'll have a game full of 1 to 2 yard plays. But if I can break through once, it's me one-on-one versus the secondary, right? Like you'd take that. So it's kind of that Barry Sanders mentality, right? Where he'll just have an entire game where it feels like he's banging his head against a brick wall and then fucking see you later. Right. And then once that happens, it makes the defense question. And also when they are stacking the box, if they do come out run heavy, well, then it's got to leave someone between Dallas, Smitty, and AJ as in single coverage. Right. So it'll be really interesting to see the game plan that Callan has sorted for this. And then the in-game adjustments. So one of the big changes, the 2 big changes that have happened in the Eagles offense since the since the bye was the run first. And the second one is turnovers, not asking Jalen Hurts to play hero ball. I think he's the only, I think he's the only quarterback through the playoffs to not have a turnover. I think Mahomes had one. Did he have one last week? But that was the last 4 teams left in the playoffs had no turnovers. And then obviously there was a lot caused last week for the Eagles against Washington, and same thing with Josh Allen. They didn't turn the ball over because they were the first team to not turn the ball over, win the yards battle, and still lose, right?
Yep. Mahomes had the fumble last week, and
that's it. There you go. So there's a turnover. So he's not fumbled the ball, and he had 7 turnovers in the first 4 weeks, and then restricted that for the whole rest of the time. So if they can keep that under control, they can control the clock. The other thing that's been key, even when we went through those 10 weeks of not scoring in the first quarter, it was the adjustments that both Fangio and Kellen Moore have been able to make. So if they can do that in the game, it's going to be an interesting chess battle between some wily old veteran coaches on one side, Jim, and an old fucking codger, a grumpy. Apparently, Vic Fangio is the grumpiest coach in the NFL.
Oh.
On the other side with the Wonderkind, so it'll be interesting to see their coaching matchups as well.
NFL coaches are famously even-tempered.
Yeah,
relax a lot of the time. Yeah. Battling the tush push is always going to be a fun one. I mean, it's hard because you can't really stop it. It's like, don't let yourself get in the position where they can use it, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah,
because then you'll just find yourself giving up a. What was the ref basically just threatening them with last week as well?
It's Washington have been.
Quit it. Stop it.
Washington have been informed that the referees can give a score. Look, I think the key for that one is we skipped over injuries, but obviously Jurgens had to. Well, he didn't start last week. Dickerson came in. Dickerson went off injured, and the injured Jurgens had to come in. So I'm hoping that 2 weeks is enough for them to get back, because they have been a very, very strong, tight unit, knowing where everyone's playing. Like Mailata plays much better when Dickerson's next to him. Lane, now Becton's come in and really anchored down that guard spot between Lane and Jurgens. And that offensive line, if it's that tight unit and you got fucking Jalen behind you, it's going to be tough to stop.
It is. Sriracha versus Reed is the last one, right? An all-time interesting coaching matchup again, where Nicky Sriracha was getting fired after, I think, week 5 this week.
Yeah.
And has them in another Supie, which is pretty crazy. 2 Supies for him, 2 Supies for Jalen Hurts. Was he the first Eagles QB to be in 2 Supies, I think? And
100%, yeah.
Under 27, it's like the first, like one of the very few to actually do that. Anyway.
Yeah, there's also the crazy stat we mentioned last week episode about how rare it is for a quarterback who loses their first Super Bowl to actually return to that Super Bowl. There's obviously the Nicky Sriracha. The other obviously wild stat is that the Eagles have started with 10 games or more of each of his seasons, Nicky Sriracha's seasons, made the playoffs every time, but done it with 3 separate sets of coordinators. So we talk about what the fuck does Nicky Sriracha do, and that's actually within the Eagles, the Eagles fan base as well. Like, what the fuck does he do? But the way that he holds the team together, and the fact that everyone would run through a wall for the dude, it's interesting that the storylines about the wide receivers being unhappy, that AJ's reading a book on the sidelines, that he's not happy, that he's fucking not friends with Jalen because he picked on the passing game and blah, blah, blah. And the 2 people to dump the Gatorade on Nicky Sriracha's head were fucking Smitty and AJ, right? But then you've got on the other side where you've got Andy Reid, who seems to be able to insert anyone into his offensive coordinator position that he fucking wants, because it's his offense. He's got this book and he's calling the plays. You're helping coordinate the game, and that's literally it, and run the communication down. But it's Andy's offense, Andy's playbook, and he's got the way to take advantage of matchups. And he was like that with I fucking loved him as a coach for the Eagles, but it was just the same voice after a long, long period of time just started to wear off. But fuck, the success that he's had has been amazing. And Spags, who went the opposite, who went out and became a head coach, and that turned to shit. And now he's found that position as one of the greatest defensive coordinators in the fucking league, right?
It is pretty crazy. It's very fun. It's also a couple of the other little bits of fun shit to do with this one. Of course, you've got Andy Reid, former coach of the Eagles. You've got the two Kelces. The Kelce's either side, which means Donna's got the split jersey on, even though Jason's no longer playing.
Yep.
Just kind of love that vibe. It's just, I don't know, and that sort of comes down to this idea of so the nahs that we've got. So those are like the sort of 5 big things we want to hit on. But one of the nahs is like the Eagles are the one team from the NFC that could take down the Chiefs, almost because of that sort of vibe. I feel. What do you reckon, Gaz? Yeah, nah.
It's funny. There was an interview this week with everyone's favorite genius pundit, Cam Newton, who was on TV and was like, would the Eagles have made the amount of Super Bowls that they have if Jalen Hurts and the Eagles were playing in the AFC? Jalen Hurts is 14-1 versus the AFC, right? He's beaten the Bills last time he played Josh. He beat Lamar this season. He beat Mahomes last year. He didn't, obviously, in the Super Bowl. I feel like top to bottom list on paper, we've got a roster that can take them on. You'd be worried with that Mahomes getting better in the playoffs, but Mahomes versus that Lions defense, based on what happened with Washington, and also what the Washington defensive line did against Jared Goff, right? So I think it pains to say, as even me as a football fan would have loved the Eagles to take on any of the other combinations in terms of the storyline in the Super Bowl and the Chiefs to be knocked out. But it still does feel like the right teams are there, as boring as the fucking narrative is, and we're all in pains to make it sound fun. It seems like the right teams.
So that's sort of my biggest qualm with this bullshit. I think this is an awesome matchup because it's just rad storylines. It's like, I'm so sick of the Chiefs being good and all that.
Fucking beat them. Someone fucking beat them.
You have to stop them from winning the three-peat. Yeah. Awesome storyline.
Yeah.
This team going for this historic marker. And on one side, you got, the weight of history is like trying to back them up. They're trying to get over the line. They've fallen over the line in so many games this year. On the other side, the plucky upstart Eagles who are busy throwing batteries at Santa. That's the vibe, right? The city of brotherly love who will kick your head in as soon as look at you. It's amazing.
Yeah. And will someone eat horse shit? And will they climb poles? And will they all that sort of shit. The chaos that comes along with Philly. Like, obviously, the fan base, the chaos in New Orleans that would have ensued if it was Eagles-Bills. If you had the Philly fans and the Bills Mafia in town at the same time, Jesus Christ, it would have been fucking hectic.
It's a Spider-Man meme. It's just
it would have been great. But that's not where we are.
They're lighting bins on fire as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of it. Like, I love the idea of a Buffalo Philly Supie, but at the same time, it doesn't have as compelling, awesome matchup vibes because we did this 2 years ago. We know these two teams are good. We know the Chiefs are historically great. And if you had some other team in there, even if KC were playing Washington, you're like, well, they're just going to get their fucking heads kicked in. This is way more fun. I'm all the way here for it. And it's been weird that people are like, I don't like this match. I'm like, shut up, nerd. This is fucking... All right, next one, GOAT talk. If they win it, this will be 4 for Mahomes, 3 straight, still 3 behind Brady. But Brady never snagged a three-peat. It becomes a much more definitive sort of conversational starter, doesn't it? Yeah, no.
100%. Because at the moment, he kind of hasn't done a lot that Brady hasn't been able to say, oh, yeah, done that one. Done that one. Yeah. And you don't feel like Mahomes is like the what year was the Moss fucking nearly went undefeated? That offense that was
the 07 Pats.
There you go. There was fucking hectic. There was just raining bombs, like just constantly, an entire season of Randy Moss. That was Wes Welker as well, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like fucking Mahomes. I just don't feel like they're ever going to surround him with those weapons. And the funny thing is, it seems to be an Andy Reid thing because obviously they had Tyreek. They weren't going to pay Tyreek. Tyreek went away. Yeah, they won a Super Bowl with Tyreek, but then they kind of let him go. Same thing was during the Andy Reid era. It was always McNabb just felt like he was doing it by himself. He had Freddie Mitchell, who was just pretty fucking rubbish. He had 1 year of TO and then that turned to shit. But apart from that, it was just a whole bunch of guys who were like middle of the road, but a bunch of them so McNabb could pass the ball around. And that's the same vibe that it feels like Mahomes has done. Where there's a whole bunch of guys like, oh, we'll try and get Juju. He played a few reasonable seasons, but then had a fucking social media problem. Like, there's all of these things they've tried, but have just like kind of haven't hit that diamond. Worthy might be that guy coming over with just pure speed. But just Andy Reid's just got this, you're not going to be able to hone in on one of my players because I've got 30,000 of them that can all catch the ball.
Yeah, there was the year they averaged 35 points a game. Still, they didn't go undefeated like the Pats did. Of course.
Correct. But yeah, you're right. So this is the three-peat is going to be the first thing that he can hang his hat on. But the other thing is, the other weird thing is the absolute longevity of Brady's career. It seems unrepeatable. So it's almost like he would have to continue on this trajectory to catch up. Now, one thing that does let him catch up, he was that stint in the middle of the Pats that he pretty much did fuck all, right? So there was a big, like, not like fuck all by Tom Brady standards in the sense that there was a gap between Super Bowls, which, you know, anyone else would be happy with one. So that Mahomes has got this chance to, their window is very much still open. Be interesting to see how many years Kielce's got left. And then what they build around him in and after that. But yeah, fuck, it's getting closer, Jim.
Yeah, look, I can't beat myself up about it too much. Like, it's, you know, oh, geez, do you want the Chiefs to not win so your Patriots are still, like, you know, thought of as the greatest? It's like, nah, I don't really fucking care at this point. I think it's like just appreciating greatness in different eras is the same sort of shit, right?
Yeah, but the 85 Bears are always fucking stoked, Jim. I reckon if the Eagles win, there's going to be a lot of Pats fans pretty fucking happy.
Sure.
Yeah.
72 Dolphins, 85 Bears, the fucking mythology.
That's it, 72 Dolphins. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea 85 Bears win a Super Bowl, and then it's like they've fucking talked about forever, and like all the other fucking Super Bowl winners are like, bro, what about
what about us? Yeah.
All right, last one. Will we see you alive after if your Eagles win?
Funny story about that. So I'm, you know, as much as I sit here with no sleeves on and drink whiskey at 5 p.m., I'm kind of corporate, and so I was in a board meeting today, Jim, and someone tried to schedule a meeting for me at 11 a.m. next Monday, and I burst out laughing. And everyone else in the room also giggled, who knew where I would be, also giggled. And they're like, yeah, Gaz isn't going to be around. Gaz is probably not who you want to be calling any day, any time that day. And no matter the result, probably not Tuesday morning either.
So I guess the big is, have you got Tuesday off as well?
No, I don't.
I feel like it's a mistake, regardless.
I know. But let's be honest, if I don't turn up, everyone knows why. But we'll see what happens. I've had both experiences with parties at the Catfish. Last year seemed more tame?
We took it easier, I think, down the stretch run. And I think that played out better because I think we left in a much less messy fashion.
Last year it took me a week to pay off the year before it took me a week to pay off my bar tab. I've completely forgotten. I left it open. But this, I also know this would be my third Super Bowl there, Jim, when the Eagles are playing. And I know, as much as I say to Mick and Kiera and the owners, that I need to be able to have my faculties with me in the second half. The first thing that happens when I rock in at 8 a.m. is a shot glass put in front of me.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I'm led astray, but Cyclone Gaz is coming out.
Oh. No way. What jersey are you going to be wearing?
The only current relevant one that I have that is valid for this game is Smitty. I have to go with Smitty again. Big game.
I'm going to be breaking out the Hightower jersey. So the first breaking tradition of wearing the Brady jersey, we're going to the Hightower one.
There you go.
Even though Brady is actually out there doing the actual commentary, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Right, let's do some best bets, picks, vibes, whatever. Just a couple of like the ones that I was looking at the most, and sort of like having gone through a couple of the the markets and everything. I'm like, all right, these are the ones that I probably like the most. It's not even 10, it's probably closer to 12. But the over-under, how do you feel about the 49.5, Gaz? Because the first time these two met in the Super Bowl is 38-35, but these are two very different teams, two very different defenses, of course, where they're two top 5 ranked ones. So how do we feel about the over-under?
I'm feeling like, I don't know, my instant vibe is the under. I don't know. I've got a lot of. I'm a big fan of both of these defenses, and I'm feeling the under. Particularly, I'm not sure how injury our offensive line is going to be, and if both rely on the run game and shorten the game, keep those long. The Chiefs having long drives. Long sustained drives, which has been their thing this year, keep the ball off the other offense, then this could be lower scoring. And I feel like that would play into their... I don't think they want to shoot out. That would play into that grind it out, Mahomes hero drive kind of vibe.
It is a really interesting setup because I kind of feel like it favors the under probably favors the Eagles where you've maybe just dominated them and they haven't scored enough and it's like 25-10 or something like that, right? I feel like the over is probably where it gets a bit squirrely, and again, it's like a 28-27 and you're like, what the fuck just happened kind of game.
Yeah.
Oh, God, we're all having our minds blown because KC have fallen over again, over the line with just some bullshit miraculous fucking...
And I'm crying and not talking to anyone, and I'm just like, I've locked the toilet cubicle and I don't come out for 3 days.
I love it. So I feel like that's tied into who you think wins. And I think I mean, as I've already talked about, my tip last week was KC. So it's probably the over. Still, as I've sort of explained, I don't mind the Eagles, and it's kind of like, what are you going to do? So a couple of my other favorite ones then, because of that, Devonta Smith, over 51.5 yards. Love his yardage totals. I think he's the one. I hate using the phrase, it feels like he's due, but he kind of feels like he's due for a big game. Dallas Goedert's the other one as well, 52.5. He was really, really good last week, obviously, as we've both complained. The other one here is anytime touchdown, Dallas Goedert. Got to repay the faith. Come on. It wasn't last week. This could be the one where he just goes bang, gets even just like one big reception, it's like 33 yards, he gets it in, and the rest of the work under and inside, he gets to his 52.5. I feel like, as I sort of explained, right, the KC numbers against tight ends, they allow 66 yards a game. It's one of the worst in the league. It's the most. It's like 1,191. A tight end has gone over 50 yards in 9 games this season against the Chiefs. So just saying, he's been crushing it. Dallas got it. 7 for 85, 456. I feel like he goes over his yards. I don't mind.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm feeling that more than I am Smitty's. Smitty, the problem is, it's like there's a favorite of a game. It's a coin flip whether it's going to be AJ or Smitty goes over. It's rare that both.
So when all three of them actually played, the target share is pretty equal, right? It's AJ Brown 26%, got it 21.6, Devonta Smith 19.8. So it's like a fairly even split between the three of them. But you're right, like it does feel like that's like target percentages, target shares versus like what they actually do with it. Sort of thing altogether.
And that's averages, right? It doesn't account for one game is going to be 30 10, and the other games, next game's going to be the opposite.
100%. The other ones, I just love the Jalen Hurts ones. And I feel like the Jalen Hurts Saquon double team, like you just sort of, if you think the Eagles can win, you can't really go wrong, I think, if you just like all over that. So Hurts, anytime touchdown, done. Lock it in. What are you doing?
Yeah.
2+, why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Over rushing yards, 40.5. How do you feel about that one, Gaz?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So if we go with the strategy that we said earlier, and that Spags is going to try and take Saquon out first and make him win, what's had teams hone in on Jalen Hurts previously is, we had Miles Sanders and Swift, and not shit running backs when they're behind this offensive line. And Jalen Hurts has actually opened up opportunities for them because they'd have a spy on Jalen or something like that. You can't do that with Saquon, right? You've got to be as close as you can. And it's just the kind of the RPO, or kind of the option that just the whether it be the run option that Jalen's doing is picking that one defender slowing to watch Jalen or overselling on Saquon is going to leave that open. We've seen he doesn't need to rush a lot. He just needs to bust that one. But he's had a long touchdown in both of the last two playoff games. 7 touchdowns. 7 rushing touchdowns for this team last week.
Absurd. He had 3 last week and had 16 total yards. And I think there was one, I had his over as well. But they had one call back on a penalty where he'd gone for 20 odd yards. And I'm like, that's over. Oh, you son of a bitch. And of course,
and there was the one the previous week before the snow came in against the Rams where he had that 40-yard touchdown run straight through the defense. So, yeah.
I feel like he's a little bit healthier. A couple more weeks to sort of rest up and away we go.
Yep.
Flip side. Chiefs. Mahomes over rushing 29.5. I think the same sort of thing I think we saw last week where he's just out and scrambling, just going fucking geez. Oh, whoa. Off he goes.
Yep.
Over 36.5 yards. Over 36.5 passing attempts. So he averages 31. And I think game script sort of probably goes against them when they start throwing it a little bit more, just because I think the defense is there. I think he attempts a bunch of throws. Mahomes anytime touchdown as a scorer.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mind that. He had 2 last week. I think it gets to just red alert levels for this Chiefs team at some point, and he has to scamper one in if they get there. I don't mind that. The other one is Worthy with an anytime touchdown. I think he scored 4 of their last 6 games.
He's the one that worries me.
He's the one, if he breaks it, he'll break it big and score. Yep. So what I have sort of steered clear is probably Kielce with those ones. I think the Eagles are okay against tight ends. I think Kielce is... he either goes massive or he does nothing. That's kind of it, right? So I feel like Worthy's the interesting one there. First to 20 points, if you can find that one. I love the Eagles. I think they've done that in some ridiculous amount of games. One moment, please. I had that stat up here. Where'd it go? It's right there. Oh, actually, they've scored the first touchdown in the last 5 or 6 as well. Last 16 games, they're the first to 20 points.
Which is crazy. When you consider for a 10-game span there, we didn't score in the first quarter. Adjustments at quarter time, fucking off we go.
And then probably my favorite one, because you're just waiting for it all game, Saquon. Longest rush over 24.5 yards. Because as soon as he gets up and going and you're just like, yes, come on. He's going for it. You're up on your feet. We're all losing it. And so off we go. Bang. That's how I feel about those ones. So I think those are my favorites, right? So you've got Smith over, got it over and anytime. Hurts over rushing anytime. 2+ if you're feeling lucky. Then Mahomes over rushing, over passing, and anytime. Worthy and anytime touchdown. Eagles first to 20. Saquon longest rush. Because the offense of KC just gives me so little confidence in almost every other facet, Gaz, that I can't really back my favorite sort of picks in there. Even the Devonta Smith one, I'm just that's much more of he's probably due. Just as equally likely that AJ Brown goes for 88 yards and 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns or something, goes absolute chaos. But I don't know, you look up and down the KC guys and you're if it's not Kielce, Worthy maybe Hunt gets in early. but it's really hard to sort of pick where you think this is going to go, how it's going to go.
They'll all contribute their bit. Even Juju had a nice long pass the other day. They'll contribute their bit, but they don't feel like they've got someone to take over a game.
Yep.
Like that just doesn't feel like Kielce doesn't feel like that guy anymore. Whereas AJ still got that. Like that one thing, all of a sudden, if he does break one and they do come out hyper aggressive, for example, and then they're like, all right, we're going to double AJ for the rest of the game. Well, Smitty can put up 120. Dallas Goedert could go off, or just hand it off to Saquon for 3 quarters. Like,
yep. The Saquon over yards as well is probably one of like if you think they're going to get it, I'd be all over it. But I love the longest rush one because it's like the excitement as he's doing it, you get to be up and it's like he's going to get 25. Hey, and off he goes. The Kielce thing is interesting. So that last game that he played in the regular season, he had 84 yards and a touchdown against Pittsburgh on Christmas. And then the Houston game was the next one. He had 117 yards and a touchdown. It's only last week that he was shit.
Mm.
And he only had 4 targets. He had 2 receptions.
Yeah.
Like, if you think the Chiefs are going to win, it's probably going to have a bit to do with him. So if you actually like him, I'd be all over that too. I reckon it just gets a bit harder. As we've sort of said, the Eagles sort of know how to deal with tight ends. They know how to deal with him specifically. He's not had a red zone target the entire time. So that's probably the one where I'm a little bit just like, all right, hands off. A little bit of an Outback Takehouse. Roger Goodell is going to rig this one for the Chiefs. Going to suck all the oxygen out of the NBA trade deadline, Gaz. They've got the Luka AD trade. Darren Fox is off to the San Antonio to play with Victor Wembanyama. Roger Goodell's like, check this three-peat out. This is the new Michael Jordan. His name is Patrick Mahomes. Only at Outback. I don't know. It feels like if it's rigged, you want a three-peat champion, don't you?
Yeah. Look, we haven't mentioned in my biggest concern and my biggest headline is we've got a kicker who's been threatening to cost us games all year.
Oh.
You could just see that as the headline, right? Get down, Chiefs up by a point, gets down to a second, Sirianni calls a timeout, Jake Elliott misses, three-peat secured, Chiefs win by a point.
That's ridiculous. Kielce over 100 yards is at $6. So it's there and it's like tempting if you want to go bang. But either way, obviously we have an Aussie in the Supie. We've got Jordan Mailata once more.
Dude, I haven't posted it, but there's the mic'd up from the Eagles game, from the Washington game, and it's 90% Jordan Mailata giggling his ass off because obviously we were quite dominant, and he did the Bane voice. I was, what's the quote? I was like, I'm questioning what would break first, your mind or your body or whatever it is.
Body.
Yeah. Does that like to the defensive lineman. He's giggling the whole time. He like blocked a dude into AJ Brown on that first touchdown of Saquon's, and he's just having the best time, right? That's where you want to be. Bring home the Lombardi. Come on, Jordan.
All right. Well, with all this in mind, that's awesome. You want an Aussie to win it, but let's do some picks. Final picks of the season. Who scores the first touchdown, Gaz?
I'm going to go with Jalen.
All right.
I'm going to reckon it's going to be. They're going to get it close. It was funny. There's an alert to there's a review from Nick Foles from the old Super Bowl, and they were just talking about some strategies and stuff. And the key strategy was just get the first points, no matter fucking what. Get down towards the red zone and just get the first point. Don't start playing from behind. Kick a field goal if you have to. All right. And I think that's they'll come out aggressively because I don't think they want that grind out. I don't think the Chiefs want to shoot out with this offense, and I think the Eagles will come out aggressively. So I could definitely see Jalen as the first touchdown.
Let's say Kareem Hunt as the sort of fear of God sort of gets in you. It's like just some sort of scrambly 7-yard thing where I'm like screaming Mahomes the entire time, and of course he doesn't take it. Hunt runs it in.
Yep.
All right, so Hunt for me, Jalen Hurts for Gaz. Game pick.
I'm sticking in with Jim. I'm like, It's got to be the Eagles. I've got to have confidence. I've mistakenly picked against them. I mistakenly thought that Washington would cover the spread. The Eagles would win, but they'd cover the spread, and they completely blew them out. If this is a team, if under Sirianni, if anyone's going to do it, it has to be this one. And the storylines, on paper, I don't think we'll ever have a roster this good again because we are going to lose players. So this has to be the one. This is, yeah.
All right. I'm going to go KC. No NFL team's ever won the Super Bowl in the same season. They lost to Kirk Cousins as a starter.
Yeah, that is true. That is definitely true.
You can't argue with stats, Gaz. That is a stat. No NFL team has ever won the Super Bowl the same season. They lost to Kirk Cousins as a starter. You lost to the Atlanta Falcons in week 2?
Yeah, I think it was week 2.
22-21. So
there you go.
Tough stuff. All right, so I'm going KC. You've got Philly. Mine is mostly because I've got a rather large-ish future riding on that one. Final score, Gaz. Who do you reckon? What do you want?
I've gone the under, so I have to go 28-21.
Ooh, nice.
To the Eagles.
That's living dangerously with the under 49. I've got 28-25 KC. We'll go the over. The MVP, it sort of feels like if they do get going, it should be Mahomes who does win it. But if KC win it resoundingly, it's probably because Kielce's got like a couple of touchdowns. We've sort of seen that before, though. So I don't know. Mahomes, Kielce, probably Mahomes. At the same time, though, like even in some of these, like the wins that they've had the last couple of weeks haven't been like, oh, geez, he was easily the most dominant player out there. Like, would you have given him the MVP the last couple of weeks? Last week, probably, but just. So, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah. I mean, if you're picking Mahomes to, if you're picking them to win it, it has to go with Mahomes, right? It has to. And I can't go past Jalen. I'm not talking about him like he's the second coming of Jesus as far as quarterbacks go. But what he has done is shown up and done what has been required of him in big games, including the last Super Bowl, except for that fumble. That was everyone talks about the holding call at the end of the game and the field that everyone was slipping over and that defensive. That fumble was the scoop and score was the big difference that just choked momentum.
Yep.
So if he keeps the turnovers down, Spags does what we expect, and that's take away Saquon. Well, the only way that the Eagles are going to win is Mahomes to scramble and put it on the Hurts to put it on the back of his arm. So if the Eagles win and they go all out to stop Saquon, it's got to be on Hurts.
So last defensive player to win MVP was Von Miller.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to the Broncos, Supie was at Super Bowl 50. Bloody hell, we're so old. It's like 10 years ago now, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like it's Mahomes. I feel like it's Hurt. Like even like Kielce had a massive game 2 years ago, one of the ones, and Mahomes has still won the MVP of the 3 that they've already won. So
yeah, not gonna lie, I'm definitely gonna stick a couple of bucks on Jalen Carter, just because he's the one who stopped Stafford in that really close game. Obviously, fucking Saquon went off. Well, that's the hard thing, right? It could be a grind out. That end of that game was Jalen Carter's game, and yet that defensive tackle is not going to win the Super Bowl MVP.
He could win it, though, if he slaps another person so hard they get knocked the fuck out.
Or that play where he's attempted to catch the snap when they've spiked the ball that he's missed twice. If he eventually gets that and intercepts that ball, fucking give him the MVP. Just fucking on that play alone. If that ever came off, genius.
I just love that he slapped that Washington lineman who then just I'm going home.
I'm going into the next decade.
Slapped him the next Tuesday. All right, there you go. So on one side, me and my fellow Swifties, also Chiefs fans, I guess. We're three-peating, baby. On the other side, Gaz and his battery throwing at Santa brethren from Philly. I don't know. This is going to be an awesome game, I feel like. I think we got an absolute treat 2 years ago, so fingers crossed it's an absolute belter again. And if you want to come watch it with us, do so.
I'm hearing there's a bunch of Eagles fans coming down. There's always some Chiefs fans there. So it's going to be a cracker. It's going to be a fucking cracker.
Rowdy. We'll be live streaming. We'll do a bit of an intro prior as we do each year, sort of like 15, 20 minutes, just talking up, little bits and bobs from the game. We'll have our prop sheet as per usual, come down, hang out, sing some beers, watch some Supie, jump on the live stream. We'll have a chat with you on the couch if you come up and say that you listen to the show. So.
Yeah.
Righto. That's it though.
How did we make our second conversation about this game last an hour?
Well, this is it. There's a lot to talk about.
There is.
But that's it. Gaz has got one more week, a full week of just crapping his pants, just non-stop. And it's just, he can't wait. But that is it for episode 122 of NFL Straya. We have the live show next week, next Monday. Now, we always promise that we'll do a Super Bowl wrap show, and it takes like another 2 weeks for our next actual show to happen. So just keep that in mind. So you might not promise. Watch the live stream. You can see just how messy it's going to get. Either way, fang us a rating review on your podcast app, whatever you use, your Apple Podcast, your Spotify, YouTube's, whatever. Get around it. Jump in the comments, any DMs, hit us up. Facey, IG, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all that good stuff. Get around all the other shows as well. NBA Straya Daily, absolute chaos at the moment with the NBA trade deadline. Cricket Today podcast, as we're kicking the crap out of Sri Lanka. The boys are all over that. They're also over the Women's Ashes, which has been, again, another ass kicking, which has been fantastic. One for all the GGs, the Hold All Tickets show, Football Today. It's all there. AFL Today is back very, very soon, which is just, I literally go from this show to having that, and it's like, I get zero break. That's fine. It's okay.
Oh.
Have a cry, Jim. Have a cry. Gaz, you got any plugs apart from just come hang out?
No, hang out with us. Super Bowl. It's going to be fantastic. There's other, if you were an Eagles fan, jump on to like some of the local Aussie pages because there's conversation going on around where there's watch parties, and I'm sure the Chiefs fans are all doing the same thing. So stick around, go and have some, watch the game with some mates and cheer on with some fellow fans.
We'll see you at the Catfish Monday, Feb 10.
Yeah.
What time of doors? 9?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I'll be there at 8.
Awesome.
Stressing about whether the Wi-Fi drops out or not.
Days. All right, we will see you at the Catfish next Monday, you dickheads.
See yous.
Later, hosen.